I was just in the concentration of people, mostly Arab, pro-defense of Palestine. I was present. That is the issue that I want to discuss right now. There are really many, but unfortunately, I am told, why don't I discuss Colombian issues? It's truly because I am convinced that if Gaza perishes, if Palestine disappears, humanity disappears. And missiles and bombs on Gaza are a simple demonstration with millions of people that have perished. For the rest of the world, what is happening in Gaza is an experiment to show to all peoples of the world, Africa, Latin America, and Asia, that if they raise the flag of freedom, that is what is expecting them. In fact, in the Caribbean, there are missiles over defenseless people on speedboats, that they may be transporting migrants or unlawful substances that should really not be unlawful, as happens with marijuana, which if you walk down the streets of New York City, you will see in how many people were killed or killed one another in Latin America for something that, based on decisions here, without any basis, scientific or otherwise, simply it was an act of empowerment of power over humanity. In this case, countries that produce these substances, which are really only vegetables, that could easily be controlled through a public health policy and not a military policy, which is what we see. Military men that are bombarding the youth on speedboats on the Caribbean Sea, which was navigated by Bolivar when it was gathering Haiti with continental hopes. Haiti had had a black revolution just like the French, superior than the French, to the point that the French were the ones that defeated the Haitian Revolution with the same fraternity, equality, except that Haiti removed the white line from the French flag, and us, the Colombian flag, has half of its flag the same colors because they were blacks that had ran slavery. They themselves were the ones that weaved the first great Colombian flag that was used over a ship full of Haitian black persons with rifles, weapons of the time, in order to form the first fight for American independence by all republics. Now, on the Caribbean Sea, they're bombarding with missiles to kill Caribbean youth, and they're repeating what they're doing in Gaza. Colombia has lived through 30 Gazas in its last 70 years of violence, yet I am here to propose to this alliance of civilizations, as it is called, that the idea is important. I read the Samuel Huntington book in Spanish, who became the ideology of what's happening in Europe and the United States, surrounding what he called the clash of civilizations, showing a world where civilizations were going to clash militarily, one against the other, a species of third world war. But at the end of his book, there was the comment that of this war, nobody will be unharmed except for Latin America, which Huntington considered would be the great defeater because he would not participate in war. That is his thesis. I believe that Huntington is mistaken, that the great wealth of humanity is its own diversity, such as Colombia. We are a country of nature and the most diverse country of the world because of its history. All bloods, Arabs, black, Asian, Latin are in our veins, ancestors that for 30,000 years have been in the Americas, and a newly arrived guy like Trump kicks out of his country those that have been here for 30,000 years, as has been shown by the center of the Amazon in Colombia, with paintings that are bigger than any art, by generations that left their mark. I call them the Sistine Chapel of America, which shows that we, because I too have all those bloods in my veins, I too have those of our American ancestors, and they, with the Jaguar, 30,000 years ago, were already in the Americas. Practically 100 centuries ago, the first Trump came about to remove us from our own territory. My proposal is that there be a dialogue, an alliance among civilizations, that the G77 gather, that CELAC, Latin American CELAC gather, that the African Union gather, that the Arab League, the peoples of East Asia, these people who are so divided right now, Slavic towns that are so divided right now, and that together we come to decisions, the United Nations. If we're thinking about changing, we must use that it's not so useful anymore. We must go to a higher level of how states may meet. States have no power. States are powerless, as we have already seen once and time again, every day, facing the climate crisis, or the fact of a genocide that is a crime against humanity. If the states no longer have power, then the people have power, democracy. And the people of humanity is diverse. It has been built through millions of years, through civilizations that do not coincide with the states of nations, an assembly of civilizations, an assembly of peoples would be more powerful than an assembly of states. What needs to be done is for the United Nations to transform into the great assembly of humanity, of humankind, a confederation of peoples. That's where we should go, because power is not in the state. Power is in the great corporations, the great companies of the great capital that belong to 4 or 5 individuals. And if we want democracy and freedom, then power must reside in people, a constituent people of humanity. But there is a test of fire. It must stop genocide in Gaza. When there is a crime against humanity, it is not the government, the local government, that must react. It might rise up, it might stop existing, it might come to its knees before terror. It is humankind that is being killed, our babies, our children, our parents, our mothers, every time, every day, every second. And if this is a crime against humanity, as courts of justice have said, international courts, then humankind must react. The veto vote of the United States during the last meeting here sealed the end to democracy and diplomacy. Because history has taught us that when diplomacy does not have a role, then weapons follow. And weapons can restore diplomacy, just as Vietnam taught us, and many in Latin America learned from it. The space for diplomacy has come to an end. Every single day that we're talking and talking, more people die until the Palestine people disappear. Humanity must act now. And what I proposed before the United Nations 2 or 3 days ago is that we use the mechanism of United for Peace, but for Palestine. This mechanism states that if a country submits a proposition to the Assembly, a draft of a resolution where the UN is requested to put together an army of humanity to free Palestine. If 2/3 of the nations vote, it becomes a mandate, and it cannot be vetoed. I know it is hard, but I believe that 2/3 of humanity are against genocide. Even in the United States itself, even in Israel itself. If we do it, truly do it, and Colombia will submit such resolution, first, there must be a dialogue among civilizations, hopefully with great state associations that still exist, gathered somewhere. I would propose Qatar, because here we might not be allowed anymore. I would propose Qatar. The United Nations must think of changing venues. We cannot vote, or veto rather. No country can veto, but for this urgent action, if Qatar wishes, if it doesn't, then another country to hold a gathering of social forces and civilizations of the world, the representation of the world. It is hard, but I know that the major associations of nations could make it a reality in order for us to take on the task that 2/3 parts of the nations of the General Assembly vote yes. If we vote yes, we face a challenge, configuring a more powerful army than that of the United States. We can only do it if the nations come together, just as they came together against Hitler. Same thing, and that was against Hitler. It is against Hitler, and I know how serious what I am saying is and what is going to come at me now, but I don't think there's a different solution. If humanity shows that it is capable of putting together an army to free Palestine, Gaza, the people of Israel and the people of the United States, knowing that these armies are being formed, the only ones that would exist against humanity, I am absolutely sure that many soldiers of the United States Army, remembering his grandparents that died on European fields for freedom, I am certain that many from Israel, armed or not, would support this idea, and that before the first shot, they would sit down to negotiate. We would open the path to give words value again, for civilization to recover value. All human history is hanging from a thread, and this is what could bring us to truly resolving the climate crisis, which is the extension of life on this planet. Making this decision, this challenging decision, I know it's an overt decision, given its dangers, and the decision of the United States and point its rifles towards humanity in Israel. And even then, I think that humankind would think, I am facing China right now because they have the best army for this. But you also, in Latin America, we have fought through decades without giving up in the worst of conditions. Indonesia and Pakistan and Malaysia. And the African Union with Mandela at the head again. And also Latin America with an Ernesto Guevara come to life again, and Europe of the Garibaldis. of the revolutionaries in the United States as well. The soul of Madison, the soul of Washington, the soul of those that founded this nation on the basis of freedom and democracy, that was at the heart of every North America, independently of the color of his skin, and they will hear African drums calling to a great war for democracy and freedom. Freedom. That is the main goal. Life. We must fight for life. It is no longer socialism or this and that. There would be a new society in the world. Undoubtedly, it'll be better than this, because it will be built over the base of the permission to live with dignity on earth and bringing life to the stars, as the Romans said in the Astra. But if we stop at speech and discourse that tells truth, but it falls short in action, then speech loses strength. Hegel taught us as a German, as a philosopher, a teacher, as Laute. And as the Greek Acratol, he taught many things. Among them, that everything flows. But he taught that ideas are food for mice in bookstores unless cannons and ideas follow, which today are missiles. That is Hegel's language. Wise, historical, profound. A people without arms can yell and scream and say a lot of things, and many people can take to the streets. But every country must open the list of volunteers, male and female, that are willing to make up the first armies. Every country that may not stop at discourse, but that just comes in here, recognize Palestine, but bombs continue to be dropped. No, it must be supported. And France and Germany must say, bring people to the front lines, march. And if there are millions, which I believe there would be millions, advancing, then the table of diplomacy and dialogue would open up, and the United States would have to take back its words, and Netanyahu would have to leave, because the people from Israel would kick him out. I respect the people from Israel. I respect its history. I know of it. I know of its great thinkers, male and female. Cosmopolitans, because they have more rights than Greeks and Romans, in fact, when we talk about culture. Perhaps more right than the Chinese, who all stopped on its borders. And the Jewish were able to be the first people to extend throughout the planet and to show teach universality, not tribality. This is not the moment for tribes, even though we must recognize it. The great mistake of Stalin started by turning socialism into a tribe. And it failed, because the new world is global. It's for everyone, male and female. It's universal. And as a universe, as a humankind, we must react. This phrase that guides this meeting, and I come to an end, it must become action, not words, not more meetings, one more gathering over other gatherings. Our decision as the Republic of Colombia, for as long as I represent it, is action. Words and action, as we say. Praxis, the Germans would say. It's not the time to interpret the world for philosophers. Rather, it is time to interpret the world and change it. That is the praxis. Europeans taught us praxis. I apply it every day in theory and practice. And here, it shouldn't be theory. It should not be about speech. There should be praxis, words and action. And action, Chinese colleague, is daring. We dare. We've opened the list of volunteers, male and female, to fight in Gaza. Let's unite forces, and we will be the most powerful army in the world. And democracy shall be, and genocide shall end, and there will be freedom in the world. That humankind is not possible if every human being is free. No slaves, no man or woman living in tyranny, no power over human freedom. Human freedom is the freedom of persons, and the United Nations must understand this, because it is time for peoples, for the peoples of the world. The time for revolution is now, and it is not in a country, it's in the entire world. And whoever doesn't want to believe it, don't believe it. But the masses will run to the streets and will give certainty to these words. Without revolutions in the world, humanity shall perish. Mothers who are having children now, the young women who aspire to be mothers, or the women who have already had children will know that in the decades of life of our children, there will be a disaster over humanity, because from the climate crisis, we will go to collapse, irreversible collapse, and we will see culture and times perishing, a civilization that perishes in the planet without reaching solutions. The solution was to bring life to the stars and not remain here. But for that, to achieve that mission, we need a humankind that is united and in peace. In this moment, humankind is falling into xenophobia, hate of a foreigner, looking within and locking yourself up in your home, believing that the comfort in which you live is eternal. And the comfort of Qatar, nor the comfort of the United Emirates Arabs, or our middle class, or the one in New York, or Paris, or Madrid. They're all useless. They will not be long-lasting if the climate crisis comes to a collapse. We've seen this. What are we going to do? To wait for more speeches? It is the moment for action, and I am now leaving, and I will talk in Colombia to open the list of Colombian volunteers, male and female, who are willing to fight for the liberation of Palestine. And if the President of the Republic of Colombia has to go to combat, I do not fear. I have been to others. Then I will go. But this must happen in every nation of the world. We must be capable of change and transforming the world. Thank you. You've been very kind.